Political party funding has been under the spotlight in recent months as a result of a court case launched by an NGO, My Vote Counts. The organization succeeded in having the donation limit of 15 million rands and the disclosure threshold of 100,000 rands reinstated after they were removed by President Cyril Ramaphosa on the eve of the May elections. While this victory for accountability has been lauded, head of the Institute of Electoral Management Services in Africa, Terry Tselane, says the act can also be used to transform the gender landscape of the country's electoral system. Speaking of his proposal to Parliament to adopt a gender-targeted public funding approach.
It would have meant that political parties would get allocation 70% according to the number of seats they have, 20% according to women representation, and 10% equitably. That would have changed the legislation basically to force the political parties to ensure that there are more women participating in parliament. So if you allocate political parties 20% of the money and saying, this money you would get based on the number of women you have in parliament, that would actually act as an instrument of transformation.
While South Africa is lauded for its high number of women in parliament, second to only Rwanda on the continent, this has fallen to 43.5% in the 7th administration from 46% following the 2019 elections. The ANC's voluntarily 50-50 gender policy has been key to the gains made. IIC Commissioner Janet Love says the idea of using political party funding as a tool for gender transformation is not new.
There are a number of things that can be put in place in relation to electoral legislation, but it is the legislators themselves that have to do that. Just to give an example, political party funding. There are different places throughout the world who use various kinds of political party funding arrangements in order to encourage and leverage the possibility of the state to enable political parties to be much more conscious and mindful of promoting women at different levels within their organizations.
France's legislation states that if gender difference among candidates is larger than 2%, the public funding is reduced by 1.5 times this difference. In Moldova, parties with 40% women candidates receive additional 10% public funding, and in Georgia, an additional 30% in funding is awarded to parties that have 3 women for every candidate. In South Africa, however, there are no such measures, as KwaZulu-Natal Provincial Electoral Officer Ntomfuthi Masinga states.
If you look at our legislation in the country, it's more persuasive, but it's not prescriptive on political parties. They can pretty much do what they want to do. And with us as an electoral commission, we make sure that we don't want to meddle in the internal affairs of political parties. So we will persuade them to say, look, this is what the Act says. Let's all try and pursue the zebra principle when we submit party lists. But we know there are parties that are just not interested. There are parties who believe that we need to all earn our space and everybody needs to get into a position on merit, assuming that we all enter the space from the equal footing, which is not true.
With the establishment of a government of national unity, it may be just the time to look at political parties through a gender prism, or else see a regression in the number of women stepping up to represent the people. Samkele Masego, SABC News, Johannesburg.